Hello, my name is Danielle. I am currently 37 weeks pregnant and I am an Iyengar yoga instructor. I've been teaching since 2011 and my goal is to share some amazing tips and tricks that I've learned through my prenatal yoga practice. And hopefully you can extend them into your own experience and other classes and even other poses. There's so many changes that happen when we're pregnant, and even though we're extremely physically capable, unless you have some sort of medical thing that's coming up for you, it's really important to be mindful of all those changes that our body is going through during pregnancy. Some of these things can be heartburn, indigestion, major fatigue, and then on top of that, physically, we have the hips starting to spread, those tendons and ligaments relaxing, along with our uterus growing and expanding, and all the ligaments and tendons that support that muscle are expanding and softening as well. So today's practice, we're going to be diving into a little bit more work with supporting the hips. And this can be a great practice if you're feeling any real achiness in the low back. Maybe your legs are feeling quite tired. But this is generally great for beginning of the day if you have a lot you're about to go into, a lot of standing, maybe a lot of sitting, or perhaps a great evening recovery practice if you've already experienced a lot of standing and sitting. So today we're going to be using a chair, a block, and 2 bolsters and 1 blanket. You can always substitute props in. And so if you have any questions on that, please feel free to reach out to me through the comments or you can message me directly. But otherwise, these are the props that I'm going to be running through and demonstrating with you today. Now we're going to set these props off to the side because we're also going to use a wall, and that's where we're going to start, is using the wall and using a block. Now I want to demonstrate to you really quickly so that you kind of see where we're headed, and then we're going to practice together. We're going to actually do a wall sit with one another to get started. I'm going to start by leaning against the wall, and I'm walking my feet out in front of me with my feet hip width apart. I'm going to bend my knees and my thighs are going to start to come parallel to the floor and my knees will be over the ankle. Then I'm going to take a block between my knees here. We're going to be here for a couple of breaths, and as we lift the spine up, I'm actually squeezing that block between my knees. And this is really going to help support the pubic bone as your pelvis starts to expand. Taking a few breaths, maybe doing a count to 10, or if you can do more, doing a count to 30. And then to come out, we're going to remove that block. I can wiggle my shoulders up the wall here, bringing the legs straight, and then start to baby step those feet underneath me to lift myself up. Now we are going to do this about 3 times in shorter spurts. So if you want to stick in that pose for a little bit longer, then I welcome you to do so. Let's go ahead and do this together. So you'll start leaning against the wall, have your block in hand, baby stepping the feet forward. Feet are hip width apart, toes point forward. And as you bend your knees, trying to get those knees over the heels, thighs come about parallel to the floor. I'm going to place that block between my knees, really a little bit more up on my thigh, and I'm squeezing that block, lifting the chest up, maybe even reaching the arms up if you feel comfortable doing so. Smooth, deep, steady inhales and exhales. Arms down to come out. Remove the block. You can wiggle yourself up the wall. Take a breath here. You can just keep leaning against the wall with the legs straight if that's comfortable for you. It's a little bit easier to get in and out of because we're going to go right back into it. Taking a breath, letting the heart rate lower back down. And then we're going to go ahead and bend the knees. Knees over the heels. Thighs about parallel to the floor. Block between the thighs near the knees. As you squeeze the block, take the arms up. Deep breath, deep inhale and exhale. Feel as you squeeze that block that the outer hips are supporting you, that pubic bone is really starting to draw into the body and lift up. And then bring the hands down, remove the block, shimmy up the wall, and rest. This pose is great to get the hips working to support the pelvis, which is going to be helpful as we move into some hip openers. It also starts to get some lift in the pubic bone here in the front of the body, which is very important. If you start to feel some pain or discomfort, which generally comes during your third trimester, this is also great for that abdomen, those abdominal muscles. Some of you may hear how those abdominal muscles can start to split and shift and open and become very relaxed through pregnancy, which is something that bleeds into postpartum and your after pregnancy body. And this can help keep some unity between the abdomen. Okay, last time we're gonna do this wall sit here. This is a supported Utkatasana. In Sanskrit, that means powerful pose. So leaning against the wall, legs are a little bit farther away. I'm gonna bend my knees over the heels, thighs parallel to the floor, and we're placing the block between the thighs. Taking the arms up and overhead, squeezing the block. You press your feet down, lift the chest up. Deep inhales and exhales here. And then we'll grab that block, shimmy up the wall. Bringing your feet in one at a time, little baby steps. Coming back underneath you to stand. Now we can set our block off to the side. We're gonna grab a chair. Now you can notice that I'm not using a mat. It's not really necessary right now, but we'll integrate it as we move into more supported poses where our legs might be resting on the floor. So we're shifting into our chair. I'll demonstrate where we're headed and then we can practice together. So once I'm sitting on my chair, I'm actually gonna shift. And in this position here, I have my left leg supported. The thigh is fully supported. Inner edge of the thigh is in line with that edge of the seat of the chair. My heel is directly underneath my knee. Now I'm gonna take this back foot, and as I lean forward, I'm gonna stretch it away from me. I have my toes curled under here, and I get that leg straight. And I'm gonna pivot on my foot to sink my outer heel down to the floor. That back leg is stick straight. Now here in this posture, I'm in Utthita Parshva Konasana, extended side angle pose. From here, we're gonna come up into Virabhadrasana 2 or Warrior 2 pose. We're still trying to bring that lift to the pubic bone that we were just practicing a moment ago. We'll come back down and even add some arm extension here. And then to come out, I'm gonna bring that back knee and bend it towards the floor. I can hold on to the seat of the chair in that back rail and shift my weight onto the chair to come to a seated posture. And then we'll move to the other side. All right, let's go ahead and do it together. So we're gonna switch sides compared to what I was just demonstrating. Meaning in this position here, I have my right leg supported by the chair, my right thigh, inner edge of the thigh is in line with the front edge of the chair. Heel is underneath the knee here. You can even lift those front toes. I'm gonna bend my back leg. And as I have my toes curled under and that back leg straight, I'm gonna pivot on my toes and pin that outer heel down to the floor. Back leg is straight, leaning over into Utthita Parshva Konasana here. So my forearm is actually rested here on my thigh. I have my hand just on my hip for this first time. As you press your feet down into the floor, try and lift your toes. And then think about those knee squeezes that we were just doing. If you could imagine sliding your feet in towards each other and lifting that pubic bone up towards your chest, you're gonna feel a little bit more of that engagement. Feet are pressing down, toes lifting up. As you slide the feet towards each other, try and lift that pubic bone up towards your chest and become light on that arm you're leaning on. Notice if it's really supporting you by kind of jamming the shoulder into your ear, or if you can press that forearm down, roll the shoulder onto the back of the body, and ultimately turn your chest up towards the ceiling here. Uttita Parshva Konasana. Taking a smooth, steady inhale, smooth, steady exhale. And now we're going to pull ourselves into Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2 pose. So now I'm really focusing on lifting that pubic bone, but see if you can think about that side of the pubic bone that's closest to the bent knee. And as you lift that side of the pubic bone, you almost have to lift that whole side waist up from that pit of the thigh. Arms are reaching out from the shoulders, chin in line with the chest. Notice what the shoulders are doing here. They're lifting up towards the ears. See if you can squeeze them in towards the spine. Still lifting the toes. And as you press your feet down into the floor, slide the feet in towards each other. Nice, smooth, steady inhale and exhale. And then we'll come back into Uttita Parshva Konasana. This time we're gonna place the forearm on the thigh and reach the opposite arm up and overhead in line with the ear, making a nice long line from our outer heel to our fingertips. And then to come out, you can bring that lifted hand up, turning towards the seat of the chair and holding onto the back rail of the chair. I'm gonna bend my back leg in and shift my weight onto the seat. Sitting nice and tall. Now we'll switch sides. You can adjust your chair if you need more room around you. I'm just shifting my chair so I'm a little more centered on the screen for the demonstration. So now I have my thighs supporting my left leg, heel underneath the knee. I'm gonna lean over, placing my forearm on the thigh. I have my back toes curled under. I'm gonna start by straightening that leg. Then I'm gonna turn on my toe ball mount, press the outer heel down, taking a few breaths here, really trying to nail that outer heel down. Now you can lift your toes off the floor. And as you press your feet down, try to slide your feet in towards one another. Feeling that muscularization that kind of starts to happen in the thighs, but really in towards the pubic bone. You can even think about lifting the pubic bone up towards the chest here. Even that forearm that's resting on your thigh, see if you can use the pressure of that forearm moving down to lift the chest up, and even turn the chest up towards the ceiling. Taking a few breaths here, noticing in your body where there might be some tension. Is there anywhere you can experience some expansion? As you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, try to fill the sides of the rib cage. And keeping the legs active, we're now going to move into Virabhadrasana 2. So I'm extending my lifted arm out, pulling myself up. I'm still lifting the toes off the floor. As I press the feet down, sliding my feet in towards each other. Thinking about lifting that pubic bone up. And see if you can really start to lift that side of the pubic bone and hip that's closest to your bent leg. Observe what the shoulders are doing here. As you squeeze the shoulders onto your spine, feel how you can stretch the collarbones from the very center of your chest all the way across to the fronts of the shoulders. As you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, soften the eyes. Soften the face. And then we're going to come back into Utthita Parshva Konasana. This time reaching that lifted arm up and overhead in line with the ear to make a nice long line from the outer foot bone all the way up to the fingertips. Give it a good stretch here. Still the toes are lifting off the floor. As you press the feet down, imagine as if you could slide your feet towards each other. Just observe what changes muscularly when you do that. And then to come down, I'm going to bring my extended leg around so I can turn towards the seat of the chair in that back rail. I'm going to bend my back knee and shift my weight to the seat of the chair. So this is something you might practice 2 to 3 times on each side. But for today, we're going to go ahead and move forward in the sequence. So next, you're going to use your block and chair. I'm going to take this block and just place it on the back of my chair here so that I can actually sit on the block. I'm going to demonstrate for a moment, and I want to show you the front of this pose, and then I want to show you the back of this pose because it's a little bit of a twist, and you can kind of see what my arms are doing. So right now I'm sitting on the block that's on the chair, and I'm going to underhook my thigh right near the knee, and I'm going to bring my heel up towards the seat of the chair here. Now, right off the bat, you might notice that the depth of the hips are really challenging, or it can be somewhat challenging to maintain if you're feeling that your hip is tight. So you can hold on to that outer knee, take a nice deep inhale, lift the chest and the spine up, and see if you can really sharpen that sit bone of your bent knee down into the block. And I'm going to straighten my opposite leg. So this is a version of Marichyasana 1, which is a pose named after a sage. But this is absolutely great for the hips, for the pelvis. You have your weight lifted off your hips, so it can actually help you practice a little bit more finesse in getting this depth in the hip joint and in the pit of the thigh. You also have a very nice hip opener here as well. This can be really helpful not only as a hip opener, but also if you have any tension in the low back or the hips, achiness of the hips. Now, like I said, I'm going to show you the front and then I'm going to turn and show you the back so you can see what my arms are doing. But the front view is that I'm actually pinning my elbow towards my inner thigh, inner knee, and I'm going to swing my opposite hand around and I'm holding onto that back chair rail and facing my straight leg here for a moment. Taking a few breaths here. And then we'll come back to center, and to come out, I can bring my leg down and knees are bent, resting here. So we're going to do that again. This time I'm just going to show you the back so you can see what my hands are up to. So I'm sitting on the block, bringing one of my legs up to the seat of the chair, taking a moment. Notice even, I'm going to adjust my block, but I also feel that this hip on my bent knee starts to lift up here. And as I hold on to the front of that shin, I can really think about driving that sit bone down and then straightening the opposite leg. My straight leg is still actively pressing the heel down into the floor to help nail that sit bone on the bent knee towards the block. This really requires a lot of depth in the hip and in the pit of the thigh. Now for the twist. So pinning one elbow to the inner thigh, and then you can grab onto this back rail of the chair. You can even have your hand a little bit lower if the shoulder and the neck are aggravated. Or if you really feel comfortable doing this twist, you can even swing your arm all the way across and grab onto that opposite bar here. And I can really lean back into that sit bone. Lifting the chest up, shoulders nice and broad. And then to come out, undoing the arms, bringing the leg back down, sitting with the knees bent, knees wide. Okay, so there's a little bit on the details. So if you haven't joined me yet, we'll go ahead and practice this now. Block is on the chair, sitting evenly on the block, The foam blocks are a little more comfortable since we can feel that sharpness of the sit bones. But if you only have a cork block, you can also add a blanket on top of that to help. So I'm going to start by bringing my right leg up to the seat of the chair here, holding onto that outer shin. And again, really thinking about that right sit bone sharpening down into the block. You know, this chair has a little bit of cushion on it too. And so I have to really make sure that I'm quite centered on the props. I'm going to straighten that opposite leg. And as I not only deepen this hip, this pit of the thigh that I'm sitting on, I'm also using my straight leg to help here. With that leg straight, I can press my heel down into the floor, lift my chest up, and it can also help me kind of shift my weight onto that sit bone that wants to lift with that bent knee. So this is really helping create a little bit more neutral length in both sides of the spine from left to right. As your pelvis comes to a more neutral place from left to right, then so can your spine. It works all the way up from your hips to your mid back to your upper back, lengthening all the way up through the neck and the crown of the head. Now to move into the twist, I'm going to bring my arm, my right arm towards my inner thigh, inner right knee. I'm going to swing my left arm around me. So now I'm turning towards that straight leg. You can decide how deep of a twist you want. Which railing on the chair do you want to hold on to here? And as you take a smooth, steady inhale, a smooth, steady exhale, think about sharpening that right sit bone down into the block as you lift your chest up, rolling the shoulders back. And to come out, we'll turn and bend the straight leg, bring the leg off the chair, and we'll do the other side. Lifting that heel up onto the seat of the chair here. Straightening my opposite leg. Noticing what's happening in the sit bones here. And you'll bring your left arm to the inner right knee. Swing that hand around, deciding how deep you want to twist today. In Marichyasana 1. As you roll your shoulders onto the back of the body, lift the chest up. Really think about what your sit bones are doing here and how they're weighing into the block. How does that influence the neutrality in your hips and all the way up your spine? We're just keeping the chin in line with the chest today. And so as you take a few breaths here, soften any tension in the eyes, lips, or jaw. And then we'll come back to center. You can bend your straight leg, bringing that knee off or foot off the chair, and we'll sit up nice and tall. Again, this is something I welcome you to do multiple times on each side. But today we're going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to come up to stand and move my chair out of the way. We're going to use our 2 bolsters and a blanket now. You can also use a mat. I'm going to go ahead and use a blanket to support underneath my legs. So again, you can have a mat if you'd like. I also want to show an additional support that you can have that'll support your ankles and knees. So you can watch for a moment and then we'll practice together. So I've unfolded a blanket underneath my knees. I'm going to take my knees wide, wider than the hips here, point my toes back, and I have my feet hanging off the edge of the blanket, and the rolled edge of the blanket is supporting my ankle joint. So the majority of the blanket is actually underneath the shins. I'm going to pull this bottom bolster in right between my knees, close to my mid thigh. And then I'm going to stair step these bolsters So what's going to happen is first I'm going to have my belly and my abdomen kind of in this space here. And then this top bolster is actually going to support right underneath my breasts. And then I'll have this blanket for underneath my head. Now you can have the arms underneath that top bolster. You can even cross the forearms here if this is comfortable for you. Just taking a few deep breaths. And although we're leaning forward, there is a little bit more weight sitting back into the heels. Okay, so Adho Mukha Virasana is what we're practicing now. You can go ahead and grab the support that you'd like for underneath your shins and ankles if you'd like some. Otherwise, once you come down to kneeling, or once you're on your hands and knees, you'll take your knees wide, toes together. The inner edges of the toes just kiss, so the toes are not overlapping. And as you point your feet, you can sit back on your heels. If you are using some support under the shins, you'll have the front of the shin supported by the blanket, the ankle, and the top of the foot hanging off of it. I'm going to pull the bolster in so that it's right between my thighs and my knees, and then stair step the bolsters. You can adjust this as you lean forward. Again, we want that bottom bolster supporting the abdomen, the belly, and baby, and the top bolster is supporting the breasts here. And you can bring that extra blanket underneath your forehead. And when the forehead is supported, you can actually put pressure on your forehead in two different ways. One way will actually kind of lift the skin from your brow up to your hairline. Or you can put pressure on your forehead in a way that pulls the skin down from the hairline towards the brows. And that can start to actually soften those muscles between the eyebrows a little bit more. So when you bring your head down, try to make that adjustment so that the pressure is actually pulling that skin and muscle that's on the forehead and between the brow, and it's actually pulling it down towards the nose. As you take a few breaths here, there's observing the physical body, where as our shins press down, can sit back on the heels, and really those pits of the thighs are nice and deep here so that the spine can be straight. Softening any tension in the neck or the throat. But then there's also the energy of the body. As you breathe, not only are you breathing in just air and oxygen, but in Sanskrit, our breath is called prana, which translates into life force. And so here, as you breathe, as you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, try to let go of any tension that might be holding on in the physical body or even in the mind. Notice any areas of the body that might feel long or that might feel short. This pose can be very restoring since we have the front of the body supported. It can be very comforting. And to come up, gently bring our hands underneath us, press ourselves up, sit back on the heels. You can push the bolsters slightly forward and come to a comfortable seated posture. The last pose we're going to practice today will involve a blanket and 2 bolsters and our strap. We're going to place a loop in our strap. We want that loop to be, it's going to support our feet. We want our feet to be supported a little bit wider than hip width apart. So I'll just do a little estimate here. You can kind of measure against the hips. Want it to be a little bit wider than that. And give yourself some nice space so that the pelvis remains open. There's plenty of space between the thighs. And then we're gonna make the bolsters into a plus sign. We're gonna have the top bolster supporting our spine. So we want that to be going lengthwise. Essentially, this is gonna be looking like a teeter-totter even, and you're laying on that top long teeter-totter part. And then we have a blanket that's going to be towards the head side. And that's just going to support our shoulders, give us a little bit of cushion. You know, maybe you have a mat and that's plenty of softness for you, or you can add a blanket to it. I'll show really quickly so you kind of see where we're headed with this, and then we can do together. So I'm going to start sitting kind of on the edge of my bolster here, and I'm going to place the strap around my outer feet. So it's really just going across the top of the feet, around my outer feet, and on the bottoms of my feet, it's kind of in line with the arch. As I scoot my hips onto the edge of that bolster, I'm going to lay back. And now my whole body is actually supported on that bolster other than my head. But my shoulders, my rib cage, my hips are all supported. I'm going to press into my feet to teeter-totter back, bringing my shoulders down to the floor. And then I can straighten my legs, pressing into the heels with the toes pointing towards the ceiling. Right now I just have my arms in this cactus or hold them up goalpost kind of position, and taking a few deep breaths here. If this is too intense of a stretch on the abdomen, you can always bend the knees slightly, or we can remove the prop, the second bolster that's underneath this. So if you have not already come into this, I can verbally walk you through. You'll start sitting on the tail end of the bolster, placing the loop strap around your outer foot. So it goes across the top of the foot and is in line with the arch of the foot. And then you'll scoot your hips forward as you lay back. You should feel your chest, your pelvis, your whole spine supported by that bolster. And as you teeter-totter back, just ever so gently slide the shoulders down to the floor. And if it's comfortable for you, straightening the legs with the toes pointing towards the ceiling. You can place the arms in that goalpost position. So the elbows are in line with the shoulders, and then the wrists form a 90-degree angle, or the elbow forms a 90-degree angle with the wrists stacked in line with the elbows. As you take some deep breaths, initially you'll notice that the front body is quite broad, very elongated. As you breathe into the abdomen, breathe into the chest. Notice any areas of tension or gripping. And then see if there's anywhere in the back of the body that might feel tight or short. And as you inhale, bringing that prana, that life force energy, try to breathe into those spaces. And just as the front of the body so easily expands, see if you can use the breath to create some length and space in the back of the body. Maybe there's a particular area that's capturing your attention. Maybe you can try breathing into the back of the ribs, the back of the lungs. Even breathing into the spine that's behind the abdomen. Breathing into the back of the pelvis. As you inhale, creating space. As you exhale, letting go of any tension, even if it's just 1%. To come out of this pose, you slowly bend your knees, and you can start to control sliding your chest off the bolster a little bit more. You can even slip the strap off your feet. And you can bring your feet to the floor right near your hips. So the knees are bent now, feet flat on the floor. And as you lift your hips up, you can press the bolster away from you if it's still underneath you. And with the feet as wide as the hips, bringing the knees in towards each other, just relaxing the knees against one another, laying flat on the floor. You can place your hands on your abdomen. Take a moment to appreciate your body for all that it's done and all that it will do. Appreciate your mind for taking the time to harmonize with your body today. To come out, take one of your arms up and overhead, roll to your side, taking a few breaths here to integrate that peace and stillness that you cultivated, bringing that with you as you move into your day. Whenever you're ready, you can press yourself up to a comfortable seated posture. Feel free to use the props around you to sit comfortably. I appreciate you for taking the time to nourish your body, harmonize the body and the mind and the body. And thank you for taking the time to practice with me. Namaste. I hope that you enjoyed this practice and have something that you can take away into your everyday life with. If you ever have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day.